All right, OKC takes game one from the Mavs, staying unbeaten in the playoffs. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 29 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists to help the top-seeded Thunder beat the Mavericks 117-95. As for Dallas, Luka Doncic struggled from the field, shooting 6 for 19, also having 5 turnovers. Here he is after the game.
We've talked about your knee. Oklahoma City is a good defense. When you look at your shooting night, what went into that?
Who cares? We lost, man. We just got to move on to the next one. Got to be better. We got to be better, and just we're known for game one struggling, but we got to focus. They're a great team, great defensive team, great offensive team. So it's not going to be easy at all. We got to play very good basketball and focus basketball for 48 minutes.
All right, South Beach Steve, here's the deal. Are the Thunder and Timberwolves on a collision course?
I believe they are. You can't summarily dismiss Kyrie and Luka, and I understand that because their greatness is not to be denied nor questioned, particularly this season with what we've seen from the great Kyrie Irving, who obviously is spectacular. But listen, Tim Legler, Doggy, listen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is my league MVP. I've said that weeks ago. He's been a model of consistency throughout this year. They ended up being the #1 seed. What they've been able to accomplish as the second youngest team in the NBA, I got to give props to where it's due, and that's where I stand with them. But then you watched them last night, and Shai Gilgeous with his 29, 9, and 9, that's a given at this stage and point in his career. I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder. The youth, the perimeter shooting, the athleticism, I think they're a bit thin. They lack girth, but that's it. To be as young as they are, to be as selfless as they are, to trust one another as much as they do, to have the chemistry and camaraderie that they have, to know when to delegate to the superstar, and for him to be willing to delegate to others. All of those things are plus, Tim. You know that a hell of a lot better than me. But here's what I want to say. I've talked a lot about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. One of the players I absolutely love is this brother, Jalen Williams. He is something special. Tim, this brother is something special. The athleticism, the strength, the ferocity, the shooting. He hit a couple of big-time threes, and they just ultimately ran away with it. They seem to have that extra oomph, that extra engine that you need to rev up and turn it on more so than Dallas does. I know we saw what Dallas did against the Clippers. We can question whether or not that would have happened if Kawhi Leonard had been on the court, even though that's a question we shouldn't ask because he usually isn't when it counts. Only played in 4 of the last 19 eligible playoff games the Clippers have had. That's Kawhi Leonard. But in the case of Oklahoma City Thunder, that youth, that fervor, that tenacity, the skills, the shooting, Chet Holmgren can shoot. Jalen Williams can shoot. Lou Dort can defend better than most. I mean, I'm just looking at it, and I'm saying, hey, this is the collision course that we are on. I don't think Minnesota loses this series to Denver, and I certainly don't believe Oklahoma City is going to lose to Dallas. I think the collision course is inevitable, and it's going to be Minnesota versus OKC.
Take it easy. Take it easy. My gosh almighty. They're not the 85 Lakers. I mean, my goodness. Take it. Minnesota, I give you. But my gosh, Oklahoma City, who obviously beat a Pelican team that was not 100% without Zion. Good win yesterday. We understand that. Got to give Dallas a little chance. Geez, Dallas lost the first game to the Clippers. They got killed. Leonard didn't play. And they bounced back and they won 4 of the next 5. I'm going to let Timmy go do Dallas because he picked them for the conference final a long time ago, so he's been on them a lot longer than I have. But let's put a little break on it. A little? Can you calm down? Oklahoma City has not yet been tested. They were in game 1 against the Pelicans, and the Pelicans had 4 opportunities at 90-88 to score and took bad shots. So I have to see a little more here before I'm automatically convinced that OKC is going to be in the conference final. Listen, they got a lot of guys. They can shoot. SGA is an excellent player. They got home court. They killed Dallas last night. Lucas played a lot of games, looked a little banged up. Timmy will address that in a second. But I got to put the break. Minnesota's different. All right, Minnesota did a great job. They haven't lost a playoff game yet. They've been phenomenal. They killed Denver twice in Denver. Who knows on Jokic? We're going to leave Minnesota alone. Stevie got that one right, but the whole world knows that. So Stevie's not telling anything that you or me or him doesn't know. All right, fine. Timberwolves in the conference final. Put a break on the Thunder.
Why you always trying to rain on the parade?
Say again?
Why you always trying to break? Why you always trying to rain on the parade? When you come here every Wednesday and you got the world fixated and transfixed on seeing you on a Wednesday morning, and then you go on your afternoon drive show on Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday, and you pontificate and you prognosticate and you talk about stuff you don't hear anybody else telling you. Take it easy. Take it easy. Let's pump the brakes. You know. You got a lot of nerves, a whole lot. Go ahead, Tim.
The floor is yours.
He's a little cranky today.
All right. So listen, I'm going to start with what Stephen A. said about Oklahoma City. Love this team, no doubt about it. And what you saw last night was what a number one seed's supposed to do when you had a sweep in the first round and you're sitting there waiting on whoever shows up on your doorstep in the next round. You got fresh legs, you got energy, you got that crowd. You're the number one seed for a reason. You need to play the way that they played last night. They were super impressive. Defensively, offensively, they had balance. They shared the ball. They made a ton of threes in the second half. It felt like every single guy that walked into an open shot in the second half of that game made it. Now, no denying what I saw last night at Oklahoma City. Here's what I'll say, where I'll say we're not quite headed for this inevitable foregone conclusion matchup yet. I felt in the first round for Dallas, and I did pick them a couple months ago to go to the conference finals if they could avoid Denver. They pulled that off. So they're out of their bracket. So now this is the series they're going to have to win. Through the first 4 games of the Clippers series, Luka Doncic had missed 36 threes. He had missed 62 shots in the first 4 games. I was very worried about what I was seeing out of him. No lift. Everything was front rim on his step back, which is an enormous part of his game. And then game 5 happened. I don't know how he did it. If he's battling with this knee, he was dominant. He was by far the best player on that court. He controlled the action. He shot over 50% from the field. He got to the line. He picked them apart with passing. But most importantly, he made important jump shots when they had to have him in the second half of that game. And then they ended up winning that series in 6. I don't like what I saw to Luka last night. I'll be the first one to admit it. And that play with Dort, when he ran by him, when Dort shot the 3 and Dort's leg was kind of sticking out, Luka tripped over it. He fell. He got up very slowly. He limped after that. He had no lift. He lost his aggressiveness. Every jump shot was short. And I was starting to get worried about Luka Doncic and his ability physically to do what he's going to have to do in this series. Because the whole thing hinges on Luka. Despite how great Oklahoma City has been as a team, this series hinges on Luka Doncic's ability to make jump shots. It's that simple, because he's not going to beat them by making interior pull-up jumpers and getting to the line and his passing. He's got to incorporate those step-back jumpers because they're uncontested shots. Even with Lou Dort, he's not affecting him in terms of a contest on that shot. It's all about lift. And if Luka Doncic cannot make shots in this series, they can't beat Oklahoma City. But I think it's too soon to say that, Stephen. I want to see how Luka responds. Whatever he looks like physically, is he able to play through this somehow and be much better going forward? If he is, I still think Dallas has a chance to win the series.
I get where you're coming from. Here's what I want you to embrace, what I'm saying. You got the skill set that is Luka and Kyrie, who are comparable to anybody, right? Here's the flip side. Number one, the personnel they got around them. Can you deal with the personnel Oklahoma City throws at you? That's a question mark, because while those guys are deferential to Luka and Kyrie, Oklahoma City doesn't necessarily have to act that way, because you got a boatload of individuals that got the green light to put the ball in the hole. They know when to give it to SGA, but for the most part, he's deferential to them at times too, because he can afford to be, because the ball is in his hands whenever he wants it to be. So we got that going on. Then look at the play where Dort dives on the floor to go get the ball, and Luka just shakes his head looking at him once he gets up. You know why? Because that's a level of effort you ain't going to see from Luka on most instances. Not calling him lazy or being negative or anything like that. But Luka moves at a considerably slower pace, devoid of the urgency that those young thoroughbreds stay with. I'm looking at that and those bodies being thrown at Luka, at Kyrie, etc., knowing it's going to mandate others, the P.J. Washingtons of the world, the Gaffords of the world, the Liveleys of the world, and others to really, really, really step up their game. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, I'm more confident with Minnesota than I am with OKC in terms of being finite and definitive, doggy, with saying it's going to be a collision course. But I don't see any reason to doubt why Oklahoma City and Minnesota appear to be on a collision course, to be quite honest with you, at this moment in time. I don't see it.
Okay.
Again, you have to give it more than one game. Please, Stephen, please. I mean, what'd you watch the second half and go, oh, give it more than a game. Let's give Dallas Dave Verne that.
No, that's you.
Jimmy's been sitting here for weeks telling us how good they are.
That's you. You turn away from the games the minute you think you lost some money. I watch the games all the time.
Okay.
We'll know a lot more
Thursday night.
After the next 24 minutes.
I agree.
By halftime.
Thursday
Based on how Luka looks in the first half of Game 2, I'm going to have a much better idea because I did not like what I saw. Even when he checked out of the game, he looked dispirited as he was taking the tape and the wrapping off his knee. He was looking at his knee. That was a bad sign for me. So I've got to see what can happen. It's not a lot of time to turn this around, but I still have enough faith in him. If he can somehow play through it, he's so good and so dominant. My faith would be in him if I can see more. But I'll know, I think, a lot more by halftime of Game 2.
Yeah. Did you?